So, I'm going to be talking to you about Dungeons and Dragons. Alright, so some of the history of it. 1974 was when the game was originally created, and in 1974, the US was going through a lot of its own firsts. So, Richard Nixon was the first president of the United States to be forced to resign because of the Watergate scandal. Muhammad Ali and George Foreman had a legendary boxing match in the Congo called Rumble in the Jungle. Stephen King debuted his first novel, Carrie, and the Sears Tower in Chicago became the world's largest building. ABBA, Queen, and the Grateful Dead were some of the biggest musical influences at the time. They were topping charts left and right here. Inflation caused gas prices to go way up, so travel was way down for a lot of people in the US. And of course, Dungeons and Dragons became one of the world's first pen and paper role-playing games. So, what is Dungeons and Dragons? So, the game itself is complex and fascinating and an absolute joy to watch, and if you get a chance to play, it's worth a play. It basically creates an entire universe within just a book, a pen, paper, and a few friends. What you have to use in order to play the game is a player's handbook, which I conveniently have right here. And the player's handbook will walk you through what you need to do. Basically, what you need is a dungeon master. So the dungeon master is the one that controls the gameplay and tells you basically what you're doing, what you're experiencing. They walk you through the book as sort of a guide. So it gives you options on characters and different races and how to use the strengths and weaknesses of each character in your quests and your missions. And right here, what we have is a character sheet. So what you do is you fill out what your character is, like what race they are, their health abilities, their skills, any languages they speak, a familiar or an animal that they carry with them, much like witches did in Legend mostly, but there was just pets. But it has all of the circumstances you choose, traits 1 through 16 because you're usually using, or 1 through 19 because you're using a 20-sided die, and a lot of other fun stuff. So each player will be able to get their own character sheet when they do start a game. It's usually between 3 and 8 players because one of the players or the Dungeon Master is considered one of the players. So you're going to have 2 other people at the bare minimum in order to start a game and carry out quests. You do need a pen and paper for this so that you can write down traits, you can write down any skills, any quests that you go on, any things you complete, traits, fun stuff that you get. And you need multiple die. So you're going to have one 20-sided die and one 12-sided die, which you can buy at specialty gaming stores. They do have a lot around the area. At least Chicago, where I'm from. You do need 1 to 2 4-sided die and 4 and up of 6-sided die. And those will help you with a lot of the gameplay stuff. Now, Dungeons and Dragons has been around for a little over 40 years now, and you get a lot of different TV shows and movies and lots of other fun stuff that gets represented or that represents the game, especially in modern adaptations. So, where have you seen Dungeons and Dragons? First off, it's the game that they're playing in Stranger Things, which, unless you're living under a rock, Stranger Things has been everywhere. It's the game that they're playing. The Demogorgon is one of the creatures that you will find, or something similar in the actual Dungeons and Dragons like books. It's one of the foes that you can face, but they're playing that game in the basement, and it starts coming to life. Riverdale, if you're into modern young adult television, Riverdale is a show on the CW, and they've been playing a version of it called Griffins and Gargoyles, where the game itself comes to life, common theme there, and it starts manifesting itself in reality, and there become like deadly consequences to playing this game. The show Community, if you watch that, there's an episode where they use the game to help a father and a son reconnect and find something in common with each other after they have a huge falling out. The IT Crowd, if you're into British humor, they do an episode on it as well, and it helps a bunch of people, businessmen, connect and find fun in a game where they become friends with each other. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Futurama are some other examples as well. And there was also a movie made in 2000 that was not considered the greatest, and there's also another movie in the works, from what I've heard, that's due to come out in 2021, I believe. So it's been a little bit of everywhere. There's also a few other little sprinklings here and there. But why should you play? That's the most important question. There are actually some scientifically proven benefits to playing Dungeons and Dragons, because some of the kids that do end up playing it tend to be the loners or the introverts in crowds. It has been proven to help with social development. So students that wouldn't otherwise really have connections with people can get some of those key developmental milestones through playing Dungeons and Dragons by playing within a little community of their own. They also learn problem solving skills, because you do have a lot of quests that you have to go on. Complex thinking skills, because you are forced to think on your feet. None of this is pre-planned by anybody but the dungeon master, and they have just little tiny snippets of things. So this is all on your feet thinking. This requires an immense amount of imagination as well as creativity, because you are imagining your own separate world here, but you are imagining it collectively, so you all have to be able to see the same exact thing that your other players are seeing. And like I said, it builds a little community within itself, because you're able to connect with your players, you're able to talk to them as your friends, because these people do become your friends. You're playing with the same 3 to 8 other people on a regular basis if you have your own group that likes to play frequently. And you do get to develop at the same rate as your friends who are playing sports or even just playing online video games. But who plays Dungeons and Dragons? I play Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of people do. Doesn't have to be a certain kind of people. Don't let the glasses fool you. I'm not a mega nerd, but I love it. So, if you have ever played Call of Duty or World of Warcraft, or you've played any sort of game where you have to strategically fight and figure out how your skills benefit the situation, the weapons you have, the clothing items even that you have, how they benefit your situation, even Fallout, you can consider any of these video games where you have to fight and plan. Even Overwatch, you're thinking Fortnite, anything like that. You've basically played a faction of Dungeons and Dragons. This was originally marketed towards wargamers, so these were people that played a lot of strategy games, like you're thinking like the world domination-esque, where you're moving pawns across, you're taking over the world, like Epidemic and Pandemics and things like that. It's role-playing games, so games online where you are playing as a specific character that you do create, which is like Dungeons and Dragons, except you get a digital representation of that character, mainly like Fallout. And modern adaptations include these video games that I've been discussing. So, thanks for watching. Hope you go out, go find some people to play Dungeons and Dragons with. I will play with you any day. Have a great night. Have a great break. Great semester.